All right, hello. Welcome to the Your Coach podcast. I'm here with my very special guest, Natasha Wodak. Hi, Natasha. How are you?
Hi, how's it going?
Good, good. Uh, by way of introduction, I thought I would go and figure out how many different records do you hold, Canadian records. So I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you have the all comers record and the 5K and the 8K on the road, and then the open 8K record, and of course the open marathon record, and then also masters records in the 5K, 8K, 10K, 15K, 20K, half marathon and marathon. Does that sound right?
I believe that Melindy has the Canadian half marathon record in the Masters. I think she ran 110 low last year, and I had
Ah,
previously had it at 110.17. I think she ran a few seconds faster, but I mean I'm not quite sure, to be honest, with the Masters records. I think
well,
Melindy and I have gone back and forth with them since we both turned 40. We've sort of been
yeah,
taking
well,
turns.
maybe the Canadian Masters list is not up to date to last year's records, but still. So yeah, so very impressive, and I mean I don't know how many times you've represented Canada. I looked on your bio on the Athletics Canada site, it says 17, but it seems a bit out of date. I feel like there's probably more now. Um,
20.
20, there you go. So yeah, so that's good. So I usually start just kind of asking people how they got into running and sort of, why do you run? Why are you out there running down the roads all the time?
Well, I've been running since elementary school. I've been active. I played soccer and basketball as well, but always loved running, and I excelled at it at a young age and was, fortunate to get a scholarship to the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. And I was there for a couple of years. Then I came home and finished off my degree and continued to compete with Simon Fraser University.
Mhm.
Graduated there with a degree in criminology. Continued to compete for a few years, but then just yeah, I wasn't into it anymore, and I decided to retire from competitive running. And I was just working and traveling, and I missed the sport. I ended up coming back into it about 3 years later, and I was, a new athlete and recommitted
Hmm.
to the sport, and just a newfound desire and passion. And that's when I made my first national team, actually, when I was 27, and it just continued to go from there. And my love for the sport has grown, and it's been difficult at time with injuries and whatnot, and lack of funding and all sorts of things that have gotten in the way. But I do absolutely love the sport, and so I keep going and
Yeah.
going and going.
Yeah. So obviously you've been able to make yourself run very fast. What do you think people need to do to run fast? Like if someone's like, I want to run fast, what do I do? What would you say?
If only it was that simple. If there was one thing I could say, oh, go do this and you're going to be really fast. There's so many things that go into being, a successful runner. Like whatever distance it is. I mean, I want to be a 1,500-meter runner, but I can't. I'm not fast enough, you know. So I think, number one is just a level of talent. To be a really fast runner, you have to sort of have a bit of a natural talent. We all know that, right? You have to have pretty much a work ethic that is almost unmatched. You got to be willing to put in the work. You got to be willing to fail a lot,
Mm,
get back up, get out there and keep grinding, keep putting in the work. You got to respect recovery. You got to have good coaches. There's just so many things that go into running fast. But I think, having a love and a passion for what you're doing,
mm.
a really good work ethic, willing to work really, really hard. I think those are key. And, you know, again, having that natural talent.
Yeah, it
It's
definitely
helpful.
helps. So it's interesting you mentioned that because I think so I have a bunch of questions that kind of are all around this idea. So um I think you're on social media a lot and I think you're pretty open with like the kinds of training and the things that you're doing. And I think about this, and I think about like, about Strava and stuff, and how it, now people know what other people are doing. Like, kind of back in the day, it would be like, oh, like, so and so like mailed me their training diary log and I typed it up for an article in the track and field news or something. And like, like no one would really know what was going on. But now everybody knows what everybody else is doing. Um, and do you think that this is a kind of potentially a good thing or a bad thing in terms of recreational runners? And I say recreational, I mean, kind of like recreationally competitive also. People looking at, say, your training or other elite runners training and going like, oh, so that's how you do it. So I should do that.
Uh, yeah, I do believe that can be not a good thing for
Mm,
sure, because what I'm doing in my training is completely tailored to me and my needs. And I'm also an elite athlete. So I can handle workouts differently than someone that's a novice. They might not be able to do
mm,
the same workouts as someone that's been doing this for a really, really long time. Like there's certain workouts that I do that I wouldn't give to some of my newer runners because just they're really hard and they take a certain level of discipline. And I guess yeah, you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't,
mm.
there's just some that I'm like, I don't think you're quite ready for that, or something like that.
What's an
Um,
example of that? Like, what's a workout that's, because running is running, and so you could kind of look and go like, okay, like I could scale that down or I could do that, but what's something that you would say no, you can't do that?
I would probably not give any of my like beginner runners like over 25K of marathon work. Like I
Okay.
just feel like that's just too much. And um yeah, something like that, you know what I mean? Like, and also they're just going to be out there longer because they're running it slower. So that's another thing that I consider is like they'll look at it and be like, well, she did 27K work, why can't I? And I'm like, because it's going to take you an hour longer to do it. So I don't want you to be out there for that long. Do you know what I mean? So I try to think, okay, you'll max out at like 22K of work, which would be the same amount of time as I'm on my feet for my 27K of work. So I try to, sort of explain that to people, and everyone gets really caught up in numbers. And at the end of the day, like I'm not running as many kilometers as most women and most men, like never, like men, like I'm never going to run the same, like Justin Kent, for example, I think he did like a 3 by 10K workout. And I was like, yeah, that's like, I wouldn't do that much. I would do 27K because we're probably out there for a similar amount of time. Like I'm coming back to that, right? Because he's running them faster.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm getting at with that stuff.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, do you think that how do you when you put yourself out there on social media, do you kind of try to put that sort of caveat there and kind of like, I don't know, like warn people or whatever, or do people are people like contacting you and being like, hey, like, because you said you're coaching, so like what's that kind of interaction like? Does it make you pause maybe about what you're putting out there, kind of, so people
No,
might
I mean,
misinterpret?
just because I see someone going out and like playing golf a certain way, like Tiger Woods, I'm not going to go out and do the exact same things as Tiger Woods.
You,
Like,
yes,
you
but
know
you
what I
seem
mean?
like a
Like, or like
reasonable person.
a pro, another pro athlete, just because they do it doesn't mean like I can do it too. Like, you have to take it with a grain of salt. And like,
Mm,
I, um, I do share my training because I hope that some of the things that I'm doing people can see, like taking my easy runs really easy, doing the strength training, all that stuff. That's the kind of stuff that I want people to see, and I want them to be like, okay, like she's running her easy runs really easy. I should do the same, like stuff like that.
yeah,
Oh, look, she had a really bad workout. That's normal. You
yeah,
do too, stuff like that. So I share it all for those purposes.
yeah,
Um, I would never go and copy and paste someone else's workouts or anything like
mhm,
that. I may
mhm,
look at them and say, that's a good idea. And then I would run it by my coach
yeah,
and say, hey, Trent, like, what do you think of this workout? And
right,
then maybe try it myself. But
yeah,
um, yeah, and I have had some of the, I coach 16 women,
mhm,
and they have looked at, and I give them a lot of my workouts.
mhm,
I'm not saying that I think there's like one or two workouts that I do that I wouldn't
mhm,
recommend for
yeah,
most of them, but for the most part, like they look at stuff that I do and they're like, oh, I want to try that. And
Mm,
I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, let's do
mm,
it, like,
mm.
and then, so I guess, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I don't know. I think maybe people are less reasonable than you think they are, but I think you're right though. Like it's not so much that is it all the things you're saying that are good examples. Like I think those are the things that people like miss, and then they're like, oh yeah, but look at this workout, I should do that. But it's like, did you not notice that like she had like easy days before that, and then she's running slow, and but no,
Yeah,
it's a really interesting question, and I think because I coach people too, and I get them being like, oh, I saw this workout on Instagram, like let's do this, and I'm like, okay, like when? Like tomorrow? Because that it's not like the time for that. And like
yeah,
you probably need to do like these three workouts first before you could get to that one.
exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing. So you mentioned like, mileage and things like that. Like if I'm not mistaken, like you have done maybe I don't know now, but like in a lot of cross training as part of your training, which is a little
Yes.
bit different from a lot of people running at the levels that you're running at. How did you fit that in? Was it like that was your easy stuff, or did you actually do workouts in cross training? What kind of cross training did you do? Like elliptical bike, what kind of stuff?
Yeah, when Lynn came into the picture in 2017, I had just had a string of injuries. And so she was like, going forward, we're going to make cross training just a part. We're going to keep you low mileage and you're going to cross train 2 to 3 times a week, instead of double runs. And so I was pool running and elliptical, um, always like on Mondays and Wednesdays for like 45 minutes. And when we decided to do the marathon in 2020, I was elliptical, um, I would say 4 days a week, 5 days a week, in 2020. And I still got up to me about 140K, but I was on the elliptical for 4 days a week. So I was training really hard.
So
So people looked at
140K
that.
running plus elliptical?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, like 130 to 140K was kind of my max in that
Mhm.
build.
Mhm.
And then I was also, 3 to 4, 4 to 5 days of elliptical. So I was doubling every single day.
Mhm.
And then I had the big session. So I was, like people were like, oh, well, her mileage wasn't very high. I was like, I worked my ass off in that build. I worked
Yeah.
really hard. And so there should be no surprise why I ran 226. Like
Mhm.
people don't value the aerobic gain that you're getting from the cross training.
Mhm.
I was still getting in the long run. So I was still getting that like tiredness and that hit on the body that you need for the marathon training. But we weren't sure if I could handle running 160 plus K a week. So we did it
Mhm.
that way. Um, I have since been able to get my mileage up to about 160K a week, but I only have like 1 or 2 weeks like that.
Mhm.
The rest really hovers around 140,
Mhm.
but I do take a day off every 2 days or every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So my mileage is often kind of skewed where you'll see like, oh, look, she's like 140, 150, and then it's
Mhm.
like back down to 135 because I
Mhm.
took a day off. So
Yeah.
but generally I'm in that range. And now I cross train about 2 to 3 days a week.
Mhm.
Um, Solely on the elliptical. I don't pool or anymore. I have an elliptical at home, so it
Mhm.
makes it very convenient. And
Yeah.
I usually elliptical about 30 to 40 minutes. Yeah, like I said, 3 to 4 days a week. And then instead of doing like a second run, I'll do that. Like today, I did a 40-minute elliptical this morning and a 60-minute run in the evening.
Mhm.
So
Nice. And so it sounds like you're almost going like doing a little bit more running now, but I mean, being a master's runner and you're still, putting up world-class performances, how how's your training evolved? Has there been things in the last, few years that you've had to adjust to sort of, keep going or like it's because it's being
because
a
I'm old,
person
is
who's
that
over
what you're
40
saying?
myself, I find it very impressive.
What you're saying? I'm old and how's my body doing?
Yeah, basically that's the question. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely feel that more things hurt more often. Like my recovery days, I have to definitely take slower.
Mhm.
And if for anyone that follows me on Strava, you'll often see I'm running between 5 minutes and 4:45 pace on my easy days.
Mhm.
Whereas I think I used to probably be more like 4:30,
Mhm.
4:20, 4:40. And just as time's gone on, I still hit my sessions just as hard. My
Mhm.
marathon pace, my half marathon pace, 10K. Those are great. but I do need to slow myself down the other days because I just feel like I have really bad arthritis in my toes.
Mm.
And so the day after I've been in super shoes, they're quite sore.
Mm.
So I have to be careful with that. I have some tendonitis issues. I have osteitis pubis. So
Mm.
yeah, everything just is, I have to be a little more careful. And
Yeah.
uh, so, but I'm still, I'm good. I'm still loving it.
Yeah.
But I have some days where I'm like, how much longer can I do this? Because yeah, it is. There's days where I'm, in a little discomfort, but when I'm in my like flow state and I'm having a good workout, everything just feels fantastic.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have thoughts of like do you have a plan for kind of hanging it up, like, because I mean you obviously can keep running for as long as you like, but at a certain point it might not be feasible to be trying to make national teams and stuff like that. Like, do you have a target? Like, are you thinking LA still, or just kind of 1 year at a time?
Yeah. Well, I'm re-signing a 4-year contract with ASICS. So I have a company that believes in me, and that really has kind of lit a fire under my butt to be like, yeah, 4 years, let's go. And um, you know, Melindy and I, have always said we're going to keep doing this until we can, until we
Right.
stop making national teams. And there's really, no other women that are getting under that 228 right now. And it's just
Yeah.
Melindy and I that are in this, 223. Well, I haven't run 223 in 2 years, but I know I can. And I know I still have another one in me, and I know
Mm.
Melindy does.
Mm.
So, well, you know, well, we can make these national teams. We're going to keep going,
Right.
like
Yeah.
I'm going to keep going to these teams as long as I'm making them. I don't know when the shoe is going to drop. I don't know when my body's going to start to slow down, but I don't plan on a formal retirement because I will always compete.
Mm.
Um, so you're not going to see a social media post from me saying like, it's been a great career. I'm just going to like slowly fade out of fade out of the limelight. But I'll always be involved in the sport. Like I said, I'm coaching
Yeah.
but yeah, I love competing. And so I'm just going to keep going and going and going and going.
Just crushing young people in like local 5Ks.
Young people's souls.
Yeah. So what do you have to say? Like, how can we encourage kind of a new generation of high level distance runners? Like, you've obviously compete internationally and travel. They're speaking to other, elite people in other parts of the world. Is there something, they're doing that we're not, or even like Americans or something? Like, why is there this gap? Because you identified it. It's true. There isn't really a realistic kind of like, next generation coming that's at the level that you and Melindy are.
Oh, John, I get asked this question all the time, and I wish I had a better answer for you. Do you know? Like, because there was significant gains in most other countries in the marathon in the last few years, and we haven't seen that in
Mhm.
Canada.
Mhm.
Um, Especially last year at the Olympics, we had one woman run under the Olympic standard, and
Mhm.
we had tons of other countries that were sort of, the US, I think they had 22 women. Japan had like 30 women. I don't know what it was.
Mhm.
Ethiopia was like 90 under the
Mhm.
Olympic standard. Like it was crazy. And so um I don't know why more Canadian women are not running the marathon. Like I feel like Melindy and I are setting a good example. Like we're running records and stuff, and I'm hoping that that would inspire other Canadian women to want to step up to this distance. And you know, uh, it's also a great way to make some money. Like there's good prize money in marathons. So yeah, I'm not really quite sure. I don't think that Athletics Canada necessarily pays a lot of attention to the marathon.
Mhm.
And you could see, Melindy and I were both left off the karting list this year, having, being the two best marathoners in Canada, and
Mhm.
and both of us very, very likely to make the team for world championships. Yet so when, other young women are seeing that, they're like, well, our best two aren't getting
Mhm.
funded. What does that mean for us? Like, I don't know. So Melindy did appeal and did end up getting carded. So that was
Mhm.
fantastic. She's one of the very few people that has won an appeal. Yeah, Melindy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That's interesting. I mean, so obviously I work for Athletics Canada, but I don't
Yes, I know.
have any part in that. It's not my decision. I'm not participating in those discussions. I'd be curious to know what, like the the argument that Melinda used to win that appeal would be, and also the thinking on why. Like, I mean, I don't know. I can probably guess it has something to do with age and thinking like that, as you say, the estimation is that the shoe is going to drop. I don't know, but I mean, yeah, it's not. I think it's not so much that there aren't fast women in Canada, but they're not making this choice to move up to the marathon.
Mm,
I mean, it's hard. I guess there's that, but it's running is
yeah,
hard anyway. If it's 5K, still hard, especially if you want to be
yeah.
world
I'm not
class.
sure. I'm not quite sure because lots of women are running the marathon.
Hmm.
I mean, I have women message me all the time about wanting to
Hmm.
run the marathon. Can I coach them to a faster marathon?
Hmm.
But we're just not seeing the young women
Hmm.
like stepping up to that distance.
Yeah.
We did have Aaliyah Brody debut in the marathon in Houston. She ran 2:35 and
Okay.
she's, I think, 24, 25 years old. So
Yeah.
I think she has a lot of potential
Hmm.
as a young marathoner. She's up and coming. So,
Hmm.
and I don't know what happened to the McDougall sisters. Was it
Hmm.
Branna that ran 2:28 a couple of years ago? And
Yeah.
I have no idea where she is or what happened to her.
Yeah.
So I think if Andrea Sakafian decided to make a comeback, I
Hmm.
think she has definite potential to run under 2:23. So there are some women I think there, but not a lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. 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 Well, you set a high bar, so and so you mentioned your coaching, and also you mentioned, and someone told me that you're only coaching women and you've made a decision to only coach women. Can you talk about that? Why only women?
uh well, it's been a man's world and a man, so many men coaching for so long, and I want women to be with women and be in a group that they're comfortable with and they don't have to any men there. And um I like the dynamic of our group. I like that the women can show up and they don't have to ever worry about getting hit on, or
Mm.
they're in a sports where they are always comfortable. And I'm not saying that that would happen, but you know what I mean? Like, and all of our group functions, it's just like we're all just like friends and it's just all the ladies and I don't have to
Mm.
worry about the guys. And I also feel more comfortable coaching women when it comes down
Mm.
to it. I don't keep up a lot with men's distance running the way I do with women. I
Mm.
know definitely how women's bodies work better. And
Mm.
yeah, I just started saying, it's just going to be women. And that's what I've stuck with. And it's kind of my little niche because I think I'm the only woman in Canada that is only coaching female athletes. And so
Mm.
that's Fierce Athletics. It's kind of a little boutique
Yeah.
women's only
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah. No, that's great. I think you're right in all the things you said, that it's people need to feel comfortable when they're training, and if that's a thing, that's gonna make them feel comfortable. And like, yeah, like as a guy, like I just don't know. Like it doesn't happen to me. It doesn't. I know it doesn't, right? Like the sort of small discomforts or like unease, that's definitely a thing for women in our society. And so it's good to try to get that out of the way and let people just do their
yeah,
thing and run. Yeah.
yeah,
So speaking of coaches, like you've had a few coaches, and like just sort of since your comeback, I guess, you've worked with Richard and with Lynn and with Trent, and like, I know all three of those people. They're all good coaches. They're very different. All three very different people. What, but you've been successful, kind of with all of them as your coach. So what were the things that you kind of took from each of them, and sort of differences and similarities in these coaches?
yeah. And also have to remember Britt Townsend coached me for
Right.
quite a long time through SFU. And then
Right.
in the beginning of my comeback, when I ran that like 8K record, I was being coached under
Under
Britt.
Brit. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's where I learned, run hard. We were on the track, we were running Tuesday, Thursdays, Saturdays, Sunday long run. I was in that, when you're younger, you can work out all the time, like 3 days a week in the long run. Can't do that anymore. Yeah, I would say very different. Lynn and Trent, I think their coaching style is similar
Mm,
in sort of the way that they deal with me.
mm,
They are both uh, I also, because I think I've come to them as more of a senior athlete.
mm,
Um, they are very open to my opinion and what I have to say, and they want me to contribute to the training. So, like when Lynn wrote my marathon build for Arizona project, it was the sort of the first elite athlete she trained for a marathon, and I hadn't run one in 7 years, so it was kind of she'd write my training and she'd say, "What do you think?" And I'd say, "Oh, that looks good." I said, "I really want to try this workout." And she'd be like, "Okay, we'll do that next week." And
yeah.
it was a lot of fun working together. And I love that she valued my input, and Trent's the same way. I'll look at just yesterday, I said,
Mm,
"Hey, there's this half marathon in Phoenix when I'm down there. Can we work it into my training?" And he's like, "Yeah, no problem. That sounds awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun." And so and for me, that's really important to have a coach that values my opinion and lets me sort of do what I want to do and has fun with things and is willing to change things. So, um, yeah, I really like that. They're both incredibly kind and uh, gentle, I would say. And that's also something I need, because as tough as I come across, maybe sometimes I I'm a softie, and I take the bad races to heart, and they have both been amazing and supportive, and um so that's great. With Trent, I've never worked with someone that uh I guess is as smart as he is, like what I mean. Like he knows everything about the sport. Like
mm,
PhD in exercise physiology. He was the lead, what was he, the lead IST for
mm,
Athletics Canada or whatever for so long. And so he knows all the science of everything. So it's really cool to be able to ask him a question about almost anything marathon related,
mm,
and he'll know the answer. And if he doesn't know it, he will find it out and within an hour and get back to me. So
mm,
it's like I have an encyclopedia for a coach. And so
mm,
that's really cool. And that helps me trust him a lot, like that he knows what he's doing. And with Lynn, she was a medalist at the Olympics. And so to have a coach
mm,
who really understood the competitive nature of sport, she taught me how to compete. Like she taught me how to compete at the world level. Um, and so that's kind of what Lynn definitely brought to the table that none of the other coaches had, was that she's been and competed at the best of the best. And that was
mm,
really cool to work with her and learn from her. Um, and with Rich, I really liked his training program. He pushed me to limits that I hadn't hit before with Britt. And yeah, I did well under him. It was sort of a difficult time in my life. So um our relationship was a little difficult at times, but uh I'm grateful that he coached me to the Canadian record in the 10,000, which has since been broken. And I made the Olympic team, and we did some great things. But ultimately, our personalities didn't really mix.
mm,
And that's fine. You can't, that
mm,
not all coach athletes are going to work together. And so, um, yeah, I think it was a good thing for me to move to Lynn when I did. And um,
mm.
I think that's what I'll say about that.
Yeah, I know for sure. I mean, there's the two sides of it. There's the sort of the the workouts and the sort of technical know-how and everything like that, and that will take you very far. But also you're coaching a person, and you have to kind of recognize who that person is, um and that can go a long way too, I think. Like, I've heard it said, and I think it's kind of true, like, the workouts matter, but they only matter as much as you believe in them. Like, if you believe in the training plan, like whatever it is, as long as it's not like ridiculous, then it's probably going to work if you believe that it's going to work. And so, you can try different things, and like that's why, like you say, if you say, "Oh, I want to try this thing," like it's probably a good thing to say yes to that, because you're going to go into that workout like fully invested at, like, okay, this is a good idea. And you'll probably get more out of it that way, rather than always kind of being like, oh, like, is this the right thing? Like, I don't know, and then you just, it hits your confidence really. Like physiologically, like you might be fine, but your confidence, it's super important. So, yeah.
You always got to trust in the programs. That's a huge part of it, exactly what you
Mhm.
said. And so it's easy to do when you're running well.
Mhm.
Uh, but sometimes it's hard to do when you have some tough races. The first thing you want to do as well, it's the training. That's what it
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
And so I I am I know now, like I don't do that when I have a bad race. I'm not like, oh, it's a training because it's also the same training that
That
I've run Canadian records with. So I'm like, it's not the training, it's other things. So yeah, just gotta trust in the program,
yeah.
trust in the coach. Yeah.
How do you build that trust with the athletes that you coach? Like it's probably not too hard initially. Like if someone's coming to you, they're like, okay, it's Natasha, so like this is going to be good. Um, but at a certain point, like they must kind of want to know like, okay, well, why are we doing this or whatever. So how do you work with them to get them to have confidence in the training that you're giving them?
Yeah, I think one is that they're enjoying it and that they're having fun and that
Mhm.
they feel like they're being challenged as well. So I think if you have an athlete that's doing your training and they're like, wow, I've never done these things before. I've never done these workouts before. I like that.
Mhm.
That's fun. And I'm enjoying this. And then they run well, then that's easy, for them to be like, okay, I trust this program. It can be challenging if they're not running well.
Mhm.
And I'm looking and I'm like, well, they're doing all the things they're supposed to do. I'm not sure what's going on. And so in those instances, I really work with them to figure out what are the other things that could be going on, like in your life or their outside stressors. And so I
Mhm.
just work with them. So hopefully they trust that I really care for them as an individual and I want them to do well. And like I'm open to talking with them, discussing, helping, things like that. So my relationships with my athletes, I like to be more like a friend. I want them to trust me and they can talk to you about anything. And so, but it does take time, of course. And so
And you said 16 women, and you run with them when you train, or you kind of like, are you always running, or sometimes you stand off the side, or how does that work?
five of them are by distance
Okay.
and the rest are in town. They're kind of all different levels. So um it's not exactly like I can go out and run with them. And majority of them are slower than I am, so it's not really possible for me to run workouts with them. I do pace them in their
Mhm.
workouts as for my easy runs sometimes, like
Mhm.
their marathon pace will be like the upper end of my easy. So I did that on Saturday. We had a session where we all met and there was about 6 girls there and there was 4 different workouts going on. So I did I did 2 different runs
Mhm.
and then I jumped on my bike and I was
Okay.
biking all over the place.
Mhm.
And so I do what I can. Obviously, I'm still in full on training, so it's not possible for me to be out with them. But when I can and when I'm not in full on training, I'm usually biking with the girls for their workouts, and I'll run easy with some of them on easy days if they hit me up. Hey, let's
Yeah.
go for a run, which is great. So.
And do you do your training mostly solo, or do you have some training partners and that you can run with as well for workouts and stuff?
Yeah, I would say I do about 50%, more than 50%. I would say 75% of my workouts are solo, but
Mhm.
I'm usually able to get out a couple of guys, Ron Lowen and Sam Wozniak. They'll come join me for some of my bigger sessions,
Mhm.
which is awesome. And they're about the same pace as me. So they were out, they did 4x5K with me last week, and I am making them do making them do because they're running a marathon in May. So they're like not quite where I'm at. So I have a big workout on Wednesday. It's like 2K, 8K, 2K, 6K, 2K, 4K. So they're
Mhm.
doing half of that with me.
Mhm.
So yeah, they're amazing and they'll jump into the sessions with me and do what they can. And but like my like double thresholds are completely solo. Like My midweek fartleks, if I have them, are solo. I had a long run yesterday,
Mhm.
and Jim and Mary Hines, who are well known in our run community, they bike with me all the time.
Hmm.
So they were out there, they bike with me, and so I'm usually, well, I'm running solo for a lot of my workouts. Jim and Mary are there for almost every single marathon long run for me, which is
Oh,
amazing. Yeah.
that's great.
Because Trent's obviously in Victoria, so I don't get to see him very often.
Yeah. Um, but you're in touch with them sort of text and stuff like all the time, I imagine.
Trent?
Yeah, Trent.
Oh yeah, we text like every day.
Yeah.
Poor Trent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you were with Lynn and with Richard, was it sort of a similar thing? Like it just must be hard as an elite woman. Like there's not that many women that are as fast as you. So I mean there's guys around and stuff, but as you said, like, that it's not the same vibe necessarily. Did you ever have like kind of a training group of women that you worked with?
Richard, like with Richard, there was a group, right? It was the BC Endurance Project. So
Hmm.
there was always like a planned practice.
Mhm.
And so, and Rachel was on the team for a little while with me. We didn't overlap too much. So yeah, I wasn't doing too many workouts with
Mhm.
her. Uh, and with Lynn, we had her son and his son's girlfriend, but they were like 800, 1,500 runners. But we
Mhm.
would still do training, together, and there was people out. And so that was nice. And Jack would do some workouts with me. Um, and since I've been with Trent since 2021, uh, I would go over to the island, and Gabriella and I were able to do workouts together when she was training with him, and Jen Lalonde's trained under Hillary. So um, there are some women for me to run with when I go over to the island. Um, Leslie Sexton and I have done some workouts together here. Dana and I have done some workouts together here. Sarah Ingalls is coming back from having her baby, and I think we're going to be able to be doing some workouts together going forward when she's fit again. And I cannot wait for that. So uh, yeah, she's super talented. I have no doubt she'll be able to run 2:23 or faster. I told her to switch her citizenship to Canadian so she can
Yeah.
take my record.
No, she's not going for it though. She's gonna stay
Who
Scottish.
knows? Who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
she's pretty Scottish. It'd be hard to convince her to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned before super shoes and like how they kind of hurt you a little bit. What's your take on these? Like, because clearly had like a whole career up until that whole thing happened, and then now everybody wears super shoes. So how did you kind of approach that? What's your feeling on these shoes?
So they've been a game changer for me because I have osteoarthritis in both my big toe joints. They
Mm,
basically like don't bend anymore. So before super shoes, you're wearing these like ballerina slippers, and there was just so much more when I was running hard, it was just really painful.
mm,
Now the super shoes are like super stiff, right? So I'm not getting that same bend. So I'm able to run hard and not feel anything. It's just the next day I've
mm,
put so much more um trauma.
mm.
I That's what my partner always says. I traumatize the joint.
Yeah.
And it'll get quite swollen after like anything that's like 30K plus out there. I get some swelling in my joints, and they're a little uncomfortable, but they go back down and everything's fine. So it's just something I live with. But yeah, I respond really well to them, I think, and I think they've helped with recovery. And ultimately, I think I've been able to have a longer career because of super shoes.
Mm. Uh,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. You also mentioned doing double thresholds. It's kind of like another sort of trend, although it's not like it's new, but I guess like when did you start kind of incorporating that into your training and how does that feel to do that?
Yeah, we started doing double thresholds in early 2022.
Mhm.
When I first started doing them, I did not like them.
Mhm.
I felt so uncomfortable in the evening sessions. Like it just felt so like a tin man out there. And um, I think I've been doing them for so long now that I've just gotten used to it. And you get through that for the first couple of reps feeling like an absolute bag of shit, and then you're okay. And also recognizing that it is supposed to feel hard, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of the point of it. So, and being like, it's okay to run like my slow end of my slowest threshold. Like,
Mhm.
we're just out here putting in the work. Like, it doesn't need to be anything fancy.
Mhm.
Um, so, but I don't like doing them 6 weeks out from marathon. So I'll do them in the first
Mhm.
6 weeks and then
Mhm.
we stop. So I won't have any double thresholds from now until Nagoya, which I'm happy about.
Okay, cool. Do you have like a favorite workout? Like, what's your favorite workout to do?
I have a few. I did it last week. I had 4x5K,
Mhm.
which I really love. And so I was glad that he gave me that one. I think he gave that to me as a gift after Houston because he knew I was sad. So he put that on the schedule, and I was like, "Yay!" And it was so sunny. It's been so beautiful out here in Vancouver. It's been like
Mhm.
sunny and like 4 to 6 degrees in the morning, and like no wind. It's just like everybody's just so happy. It's been great.
Mhm.
Uh, so I really like that one. I would say I love 5x2K as well. If I'm tuning up for a half marathon. Um, or 10K, hit that one hard. It's a good confidence booster, like that one. Trent's always mixing it up with my marathon pace workouts, so I don't really ever do kind
Mhm.
of the same thing twice. Like I've done the workout I'm doing on Wednesday before, like we'd alternate between half marathon pace and marathon pace, so 2K, 8K, 2K, 6K,
Mhm.
2K, 4K. I
Mhm.
like going down,
Mhm.
but every once in a while we'll do something like 8, 6, 4, 8. And I hate that so much. Like sometimes he'll put the last one and he'll be like 6 to 8. Like and I at the beginning of the workout I'm always like, of course I'm gonna do 8. And then I
Yeah.
get to it, it's like 6. I'm only doing 6 because
Yeah.
I'm so tired by the time I get there. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's good that those are your favorite workouts because those sound like pretty good marathon workouts. So that's what you need to do,
yeah,
right?
I like working hard. I like challenging myself because I feel like if I can nail the workout that I just like feel so good and so ready for the race. So
Mhm.
uh yeah, I mean I've had some great marathon builds in the last 2 years. You wouldn't know it because I haven't performed to what
Mhm.
I've done in training. And so I'm really hoping that I'm able to get through another great build and show that in Nagoya because I've had marathon builds that have been better than what I did before Berlin.
Mhm.
But it hasn't I haven't been able to perform on race day. So
Mhm.
um hoping that this time around is different.
Yeah. Do you think about like, because the marathon build is such an investment and it's like, and then you get like one shot. It's not like running 1500 where you can like, oh, well, I'll go again next week, right? So do you think about when you choose your races, like, have you thought about not, doing like a major championship just because it's not to say it's a waste, but like, it's not going to be like a good time. Obviously, it's going to be a different kind of good time and, representing your country and all that and running at the World or Olympics or something. But like, do you think about that and try to like kind of target races that you can run fast or are you just you don't care and you're like, well, if I'm running for Canada, then that's good.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I want to run fast, but I want to represent my country. So it's a constant.
Mhm.
What are you gonna do? And I think Melinda and I are in the same sort of headspace where we're like, we want to run world championships in Tokyo. We want to represent our country. We want to place well, but it's like we also want to run really fast, and we know that it's not going to be a fast course and it's going to be really hot,
Mhm.
and we want to make money, right?
Mhm.
At the end of the day, we want
Mhm.
to make money, and so you know, we won't make money doing that. So it's kind of like, do you go and run something like Berlin or Chicago, Toronto, where you can have an opportunity to run fast and make good prize money?
Mhm.
So it is tough. And I think, I did skip Eugene World Championships to run Berlin that year,
Mhm.
and it worked out well for me. Because I didn't run the Olympics last year, I am more keen to run World Championships this
Mhm.
summer because
Mhm.
and I don't know how many more opportunities I'll have to represent my country. I selected a fast marathon this spring
Mhm.
because of that. I want to run fast in Nagoya. Um, so hopefully I can get that done in Nagoya and I'm not feeling so. If I don't, I might be like, you know what, I need to run a fast marathon this fall and
Mhm.
So who knows? I don't know, but it is a constant, it's a tough decision. But at the end of the day, there's something very special about running at a world championships or Olympics and representing your country that I think always leans me towards that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a thing. I don't know if you know this, but I actually did run for Canada once, twice actually, for mountain running.
I
And
did not know
yeah, yeah. The team was weak, let me tell you. But anyway,
that.
I was running, it was in New Zealand, and it was like up down, and like I was running, and like I basically on the downhill, it was very steep downhill, and I turned my ankle like super bad. Like it was terrible. I didn't run for like 2 months after. But I'm I'm kind of like halfway up this mountain, and I have to like, get back down, and I'm running, right? And I'm running, and like my ankle's all blowed up, and I'm like, this is dumb. I need to just stop. And someone yells, "Go Canada!" And I was like, oh man, I can't stop. I'm Canada. Canada does not stop. And I was like,
That's
all right,
right.
let's go, and like it wasn't like a good performance or anything, but I finished it because I was Canada that day. Had to get it done.
There you go. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Inspiring. I love it. Yes,
Yeah.
this is
So
true. There's something very special about putting on that jersey and also like being a part of the team,
mhm.
going to the training camp beforehand and just like being with the team is really special. And um, I mean, I've been on a lot of national teams in the last 13 years. And so last when I didn't make the Olympics last summer, I said one of the hardest things for me was not getting to be there with the team because I was, I've built relationships with a lot of the athletes and with a lot of the support staff that's there. And so I was really, really sad not to be there. And like the year before, a couple of them were calling me Mama Todd or Mama Tash. And so, I wished I could be there and support them. And yeah, it's a special thing. So this summer, hopefully I'll be back being Mama Tash and Mama Melindy.
Good. Yeah, well, I hope so. So thanks for taking the time in your busy double training day and coaching schedule to come and talk. Appreciate it. Yeah, always nice to talk to you, and always appreciate your thoughts on things. I was hoping you'd be like a little more controversial, maybe say something fun, but I guess you know,
I did talk about Athletics Canada.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good. All right. Well, anyway, thank you. I really appreciate it. So have a
No
good
problem. You're welcome.
evening. All right.